welcome back. All right, so today I'm going to do an update on the Tokyo Haneda crash, and then I'm going to move on to what is going on with Boeing right now. All right, so quick summary. Back at the beginning of January, a Airbus A350 wide-body twin jet, I believe it was JAL516, landing through for right, landed on top of a Coast Guard Dash 8. Now, the Japanese Ministry of Transportation, they stepped in, the government, and they immediately did an investigation. And in 1 week's time, they interviewed pilots, the controllers, ground personnel. They listened to tapes. They did a full analysis of what happened, why it happened, what the human factors were, and they've already implemented changes. Boy, I tell you, they went right to the heart of let's fix this. They didn't care about politics or blame or social media. They just wanted to fix the problem and save lives, and they really did a great job. They just stepped up to the plate, and I don't know, I think we could learn a lesson or two about the way they got things done over there. All right, so after interviewing the captain who did survive and then listening to tapes and hearing what the first officer had to say, they determined that both the pilots did indeed believe they were cleared onto the runway. Now, you can argue they weren't cleared onto the runway and they just screwed up, which is true. They did make a mistake and they weren't cleared onto the runway, but that doesn't matter. The question is, why did these pilots believe that they were cleared onto the runway? They weren't suicidal. They didn't want to taxi to their own deaths, right? So what happened here and how can we fix it? And what they determined was that telling the pilots that they were number one was misinterpreted to mean you're number one, get onto the runway. That is how both the pilots perceived that instruction by ATC. And immediately, within a week, the government in Japan has changed the phraseology, changed the rules to ensure that this confusion doesn't happen again. Let's look and see what they came up with. So they determined that all airports in Japan will suspend the use of the terms as number one when issuing air traffic control instructions to aircraft, and will use more precise phrases when communicating orders. Great idea, right? These pilots messed up, somebody else could mess up down the road. And again, you have an airport here that is combining English as a second language with foreign airlines from all over the world, military and civilian. Boy, that's a quite a mix of different pilots and all different cultures, and to make the phraseology as simple and crystal clear as they possibly can, you know, that's what needed to be done. And boy, they just stepped right up to the plate and they did that. All right, so there were a couple other extenuating circumstances that also need to be fixed. Another reason why they thought that they were cleared onto the runway is because they were told they were number one, and Delta Airlines was told they were number two. So that led them to believe that they were, you know, ahead of him and had to get moving. The stop bar system that the airport has was out of service. That is controlled by the air traffic controllers. So with those red lights not on, it would be another indication from the controllers to the pilots, at least perceived by the pilots, that they were indeed cleared onto the runway. And let's also keep in mind, this Coast Guard flight was on its way to a remote area in Japan to bring in emergency supplies for earthquake relief. An earthquake had happened just 24 hours earlier. I believe this aircraft had already flown 3 missions. They had previously been given priority handling, and you know, human factors, expectation bias, that's what they were expecting and that's what they heard. All right, so going back to this report, it went on to say, additionally, all air traffic control crews in Japan will have extra staff to constantly watch monitoring systems that warn about erroneous entry into runways. Now, the control tower at Haneda did have a runway incursion system. It was operating and working correctly, and the controllers were given a warning that an incursion was occurring. And for some reason, none of the controllers noticed that. They also didn't notice this aircraft sitting on the runway center line for nearly a minute. So, okay, no blame here. Let's fix it, right? Why did this happen? Nobody wanted anybody to die. Nobody wanted these planes to crash. So what was the problem that caused this human error? And let's find a solution. So they're going to hire more controllers. Very good. Good idea. All right. So, in the United States, we've had an air traffic controller shortage. Going back, let me think. 1981, I believe, is the year that Ronald Reagan fired every single air traffic controller in the nation. Probably the single-handed most dangerous thing when it comes to air safety that any politician has ever done was that one act by Ronald Reagan. But okay. Now, I've been in aviation, about 40 years now, and my entire career, I've been hearing about the air traffic controller shortage. And believe me, I know a lot of controllers, I know a lot of people in the business, and I kind of have a little bit of trouble wrapping my head around how it is that our government cannot find people to fill these jobs. An air traffic controller, this is a position that pays six figures. The only requirement to apply is a high school GED. You get paid to learn how to become a controller. There's no student loans involved. Now, granted, it's not an easy job. There's a lot of work, and lots of people start and they don't accomplish it. They don't finish. But you know what? Becoming a surgeon, becoming a doctor is not easy either. We don't have a doctor shortage. There's a lot of jobs that take effort, that make good money, and we don't have a shortage. And air traffic controllers, they get their full government retirement benefits, mandatory retirement, I think on their 56th birthday, and then they're kind of set for life. So how is it that our government can't fill these openings? I don't know, that would be a whole nother video, but okay, I'm just saying. All right, moving on. Back to this report. The Japanese government also cited the Tenerife accident from 1977. So let's just look at this. So a communication error led to a 1977 airport collision on the Canary Islands that killed 583 people. So they're referring back to the Tenerife accident from 1977, where two 747s collided on the runway. Ultimately, they determined this was a miscommunication error. The KLM pilots, their English wasn't great. The air traffic controllers were Spanish. Their English wasn't great. There was a misunderstanding. The controller used the word takeoff, and what he said was an en route clearance. The KLM pilots thought that they were cleared for takeoff because of that phraseology, and this runway collision occurred. All right, so in that investigation, they determined this phraseology was unclear, it was confusing, and they needed to eliminate that and make sure that the word takeoff was never used from a controller to a pilot unless that controller was actually issuing a takeoff. And you know what? That accident has never occurred again for that reason. So changing the phraseology to make sure that it is crystal clear to everybody exactly what is intended. It worked there, and apparently the Japan government used that as a blueprint to make very similar changes here in their air traffic control system. Very good. All right, so let's move on to Boeing. What is going on with Boeing right now? All right, so there's been lots of headline news now about Boeing, right? Everyone knows about the door that fell out. And granted, that has lent itself to some pretty funny memes. I've been a little guilty of that myself. But now it seems like there's just story after story about Boeing in the media. And it seems like anything that happens now, it's let's blame Boeing. My favorite is this latest headline that says FAA is investigating collision at Chicago O'Hare. All right, so I think there were two planes that were on the ramp. One was parked and was empty, and another one taxiing by like a wingtip clipped it. That's not a collision, and it certainly had nothing to do with Boeing. So I think we do need to rein this whole going after Boeing thing in a little bit at this point. Let's keep in mind there's 32,000 flights every single day just in the United States. And if you think about worldwide, how many aircraft are in the air at any given moment, honestly, Boeing's got a pretty darn good record. So this was an anomaly, this door. So, all right, so let's look at this. So this door fell out. So I don't think there was an explosive decompression that caused this door to blow out. The aircraft was just climbing out. It would have been very early in the pressurization schedule to have enough differential pressure to cause that kind of force. I think the door just fell out. All right, so how does that happen, right? How does this plug just fall out? Well, this plug has 4 bolts that hold it in place. So either these bolts all simultaneously failed or they weren't installed to begin with. Now, for them to simultaneously fail, they would have all had to have sheared the exact same time. And I'm not an engineer, but I believe that would take something like 7,000 pounds of force on each bolt. I find it not really logical that they all sheared simultaneously. I think probably they just were missing. So how did that happen? Well, let's see here. Assuming that the aircraft was delivered to Alaska in this condition, why did that happen to begin with? Well, we've got Boeing we can look at. Spirit Aerosystems, that's the manufacturer of these plugs and the panels. I believe they manufacture these plugs in Malaysia. There's AAR, which was just an aftermarket company that Alaska contracted to install some aftermarket mods to the aircraft, I think a Wi-Fi system. And well, I guess it's possible that Alaska did something, but I don't think so. So let's figure this out. We have the door, right? It landed in some teacher's backyard. We actually have it. So I think it'd be probably pretty easy to look at it and determine what kind of damage there is to the door and what was the cause of this door coming out of place. So, all right, let's look at the door. Oh, wait a second. We can't look at the door because for some reason, the NTSB who has the door will not release any pictures of the door or information about it. Why is that? Is that really increasing safety? All right, so the NTSB has 7 to 10 days to release a preliminary report when there is an accident. So far, we've got nothing, and it's been weeks. We have no docket, no report, no recommendations, and we have no access to pictures or any of the material that they are looking at. I don't know why that is, but looking further into NTSB, I see that they've completed 24 investigations regarding runway incursions. Now, of those 24 runway incursion investigations, the NTSB has come up with 0 recommendations. Zero, no recommendations at all. I'm not really sure what the point of an investigation is if you're not going to take active steps to change things. All right, I do see the FAA now is wanting to implement changes to cockpit voice recorders. They want to increase the record time to 25 hours. So it used to be 30 minutes, and then they increased that to 2 hours. Now they want to increase that to 25 hours. I think that is a great idea. It's a long time in coming. There's absolutely no reason why a cockpit voice recorder would be recorded over, which I think just happens in the due course of time if it's not, if it's not pulled. If you have 25 hours, that's going to stop that problem, right? You're going to have that evidence for the investigation, and the more evidence you have, the more information you have, the more you can make changes, the more you can recognize what went wrong, and you can fix it. What I do question is there are absolutely no recordings, no area mics in air traffic control facilities. Now, hear me out here. I think that, especially when it comes to runway incursions, there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle, right? We need to know what the pilots are talking about. Even though it's just 2 of them kind of vacuum sealed into this little vault, we want to know, were they distracted? Was it a workload problem? What caused them to make a mistake? But just the same, you have air traffic controllers, right? We need to know. I don't need to know. I don't care. Don't tell me. But the investigators need to know all the pieces to the puzzle. If a controller made a mistake, why was that, right? Was it workload? Was it procedures that need to be changed? Was it distractions? Gosh, I mean, what caused this error to happen? What caused it, so we can make sure that we can fix it, we can change it, and it doesn't happen again. And for some reason, that piece of the puzzle is completely omitted. We do not know, the investigators do not know what caused the controllers to make this error, because there are no area mics recording what is going on in these ATC facilities like there are in airplane cockpits, right? I'm not sure why the FAA has one set of rules for pilots, for airlines, but, you know, obviously different rules for their own employees. I don't know. I just think that our millions of dollars in taxpayer money going to this massive organization can be better spent. I'm sure everybody has good intentions. I'm sure everybody wants to increase safety, but there are things that we can be doing differently, things that we can be doing better. You know, you always can do things better. And I think it's time. I think it's time that we start making some changes here and just get action where, you know, where action has been missing. All right, everybody, thank you very much. And until next time. All right, have a great day.